And we are back. Now we have set up a new project under our organization name Fund Deployment. Now we have two projects. We have first one testing Supabase and second one Foodie app. So let's switch over between them. This is the first one, which we were using before. And if we go into the table editor, we'll see that our Craigslist is still here. All is good. All is working like it's supposed to. If we switch over back to Foodie app, we will see that we have nothing. Well, of course, we have nothing because we didn't seed the database. We didn't create any tables, any relations. It's all blank. And our Foodie app is running locally right now. Eventually, we want to deploy it, but first we will tackle in connecting it to our database hosted on Supabase. So let's log out and let's pedal back to where our database URL is. And right now, our database URL is pointing to the local instance of our database. The database that is running locally on our machine. What we want to point it to is our Supabase database. So let's go and figure out how to do that. In our dashboard, we need a connection string. Remember how we were connecting with PSQL where we had all those options? Something like it, but not quite. So we'll open up our dashboard. We will go to project settings and we will go to our database settings. Now we have a couple of things here, right? This was our connection string for PSQL. What we need now is our database URI. And if we click up here, this is it. Let's copy it over because I want to keep my sanity and not type it out. And let's go in here and throw it in. Now, notice that it's going to be a little different. In fact, I will call this variable Supabase DB URL. First thing to notice is that by default, Supabase uses Postgres as the first part of the URL. Depending on the version of SQL Alchemy, it might work with the default or it might expect the following PostgreSQL. If you add in PostgreSQL, it will work across all versions. That's a fail-safe, so keep that in mind. Now, this is going to be our username, or technically our database username, and here we will put in our password. Now, what is our password? Remember, we created it here. Now, I do not remember my password and I will reset it. This is going to be for this particular database only. I'll reset it. I will reset, generate an automatic password, copy, reset. But if you make your own password, you don't have to reset it. Just remember your password and definitely don't show it to anybody else. But for learning purposes, we are putting it here. And now we will paste it in. And now our host is the following. Our port 5432 and database name is Postgres. Good. So Supabase DB URL is here. Let me then grab it from my env file and let me then throw it in here because this is what I want to connect to. You may use one variable I will use 2. Up to you. Okay, so we have that. Now, let's take a step back. Let's exit out our local database. Let's clear that up. Let's exit out of our Flask application. Let's clear that up. Let's go back to our Supabase dashboard. This is our foodie app. Let's go back to our table editor and look, we now have a users table. How did that happen? Let's review. I entered the database URL here. My Flask app restarted. It connected to the Supabase database and it built the users table for us. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Now, if you were not running in a debug mode, if your Flask app didn't restart automatically, well, you might have just have to Flask run again. And if you Flask run, now notice it's taking a little bit longer, right? Because it's not connecting to the locally hosted database. It has to reach out to Supabase. It has to send the credentials. It needs to get a response. And now that it got the response, now it's running and it's set up. So, well, let's go and let's go into Foodies and let's refresh. Let's make sure it's working. Let's sign up. But before we do that, let's go into our Foodie app and SQL editor and let's do something like following. Select all from users and let's run this query and nothing. Success, no rows returned because we have no users here. That is exactly what's supposed to happen. So let's sign up. All right, and password. Sign me up. Not now. Let's wait for this. Good, now I'm signed up. I have new recipes. Great, let's go back to our Supabase dashboard. Let's rerun this query, run it, and voila, my data is here. Great. Sometimes we might want to seed some data into it. This is very simple as well. Let's take a quick look here. So our Flask application is running. Let's stop it. Let's go in and let's look at our seed file. So I want to seed a bunch of users from a CSV file. Okay, so I'm grabbing the app context, I'm rebuilding the database, I'm creating the database again, and I'm seeding a bunch of users here, and I am committing the session. This should be indented like so. All right, let's jump in here. Let's go here, and we want to do what? We want to do Python 3 seed.py. Run that. Again, not instantaneous because it has to reach out to Supabase, send the credentials. It's going to think for a second, send the credentials, and see the database. We didn't get much of a printout. That's usually a good thing because if it's an error, they will throw us an error. And so let's go back. Let's go back into setup into our SQL editor and let's run select all from users again. And now we have all of the users seeded from our CSV. And that's all there is to it. We got the connection string. Again, we got the password. We built the connection string and we connected to our database, to our external database. That's it. Now we will look at deploying our Flask app on render. That way our Flask app is both deployed and is using a hosted database. See you there.